Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to part 9 of in-depth Looksie for Codex Skitarii. I told you it was going to be a bunch of parts. In this part I'm going to go over Sydonian Dragoons and the Ironstrider Ballistarii. So firstly I'm going to give you some common core fluff for them, and that is that they ride on top the Ironstrider engine. Now the Ironstrider engine was invented in the 33rd millennium essentially by a tech priest who wasn't very politically savvy, so due to the jealousy of his peers, he was basically ostracized, shunned, sent away, and when he died, the secrets died with him of how to create an Ironstrider engine from scratch. And the Ironstrider engine, the reason why it's like, well, why is that a big deal, is because he figured out how to make it as close to a perfect perpetual motion machine as possible. So essentially, once the thing is started up, it powers itself. And he never taught anybody else, in theory, how to do it. So what we have is a case of Ironstriders that's all we got. The number that exists now is the only number we have. Now I imagine if an Ironstrider engine, let's say, was severely damaged and one leg was blown off, the other one was missing half of its legs, and it was on its side and it's still trying to walk, because part of the fluff is these things are never turned off, so it'll still try to walk. As long as that core perpetual motion engine thing is intact, I imagine they're able to repair it and make it work again. But in terms of making something scratch from the ground up, they can't do it. Now the silly thing about their fluff is that they never turn the Ironstriders off because of this fact. So they're constantly walking. They have prototypes that walk around the equator of Mars just cause. They have stables, they call them iron stables, where they walk in big circles, or they put them on big hamster wheels to use as generators. Because they're walking all the time, might as well put that walking to use. Which is cool, but at the same time I find it a bit cheesy that they're always walking, that they don't turn them off. So in order to work on them, you have to constantly be, like, tech priests who work on them basically stand on platforms that move at the same speed so they can work on them because they're constantly moving. To ride one, you got to be lowered down from above it because it's constantly moving. It's just a bit silly to me. That part's a bit silly. It raises questions like being locked in close combat. It raises questions about being, in an encampment. It raises questions. So that part's a bit silly to me. But with that being said, let's look at the Sydonian Dragoons now. And both the Sydonian Dragoons and the Ironstrider Ballistarii are pretty well point costed. The Sydonian Dragoons are cheaper than Ironstrider Ballistarii initially, so that's one thing to keep in mind, but I think both are very well point costed. So what we have here is a weapon skill and ballistic skill equal to that of a tactical marine. We have a strength that's one higher than a tactical marine strength. The armor value all around is 11. The initiative of a Skitarii, 3 attack space and 2 hull points. It's a vehicle, it's a walker, and it's open topped, keep that in mind. And you get 1 Sydonian Dragoon initially. The war gear it has is a taser lance, broad spectrum data tether, and a searchlight. I like that it has a broad spectrum data tether. That's always useful to have. So decent war gear to start off with. Option wise, you include up to 5 additional Sydonian Dragoons, so you can have a total of 6 in one squad. That's a pretty big walker squad. Any model may replace its taser lance with a radiant Giselle, which I find pretty cool because that speaks to my play style. And any model may take a Phosphor Serpenta, which is a nice little phosphor weapon. Special rules wise, they have Crusader, Doctrine Imperatives, Dunestrider, and Incense Cloud. And that rule means that a model with this special rule, Incense Cloud, counts as obscured, receiving a 5+ cover save, so it brings this cover save with it wherever it goes. So that's the Sydonian Dragoons. The Sydonian Dragoons are basically like mighty knights of legend, you could say. They're on top of their iron steed, the Ironstrider engine, and they charge with their taser weapons. The ground shakes, the engines thunder forth at full speed, the tasers crackle to life, and they just smash into the enemy, kicking it with the machine, prodding it with that taser lance, and all in all bringing not a good time for the enemy they charged. Now, it is a taser lance, coming in at a nice strength, but a taser lance nonetheless. So combining the strength bonus from the taser lance with the high strength that the Dragoon has initially means you can wound stuff pretty easily. However, the real lack of armor penetration capability means you really don't want to charge into things like Terminators or other really hardened heavy infantry, unfortunately. So, being that it's a taser, however, it does benefit from that whole taser special rule, which means it can generate a lot of attacks potentially into a squad. So this is something you would charge into Orc Boys if you don't really care too much about the potential for the Knob having a Power Fist. You can charge this into a Space Marine squad that does not have a Power Fist. You can charge this into Fire Warriors, Guardsmen, stuff like that. The Space Marine squad would probably be the limit of its capability to effectively hurt. But even though it has no real armor penetration value, the fact that it has that that taser rule and that strength means you could do a lot of wounds to them. So they're an interesting niche assaulter, and the fact that they kind of fulfill the same role as the Skitarian infiltrators, only they do it as a walker. So a bit more protected capabilities potentially, as well as its own set of weaknesses for being a vehicle. But their fluff is pretty cool. It started on Mars with the Sydonians riding atop things that could walk, like the Ironstrider, in the dense acidic fog and bogs, where they would be sitting high enough where they're not dying in those things. They can still stalk it and hunt from there and attack from there. So the Ironstrider engine, makes the Sydonian Dragoons be a practical thing on Mars, and that translates to a practical military unit off of Mars. So the whole idea of the incense cloud is meant to represent the fact that they used to stalk in those dense mists. So it's not acidic mist, but it's representing the fact that they would be shrouded by that mist. So this cloud that they produce mimics that. So they're a pretty cool unit. What I like about them is, if you look at it, especially considering they can take a radiant weapon, and you look at how GW assembled the Sydonian Dragoon to look differently than the Ironstrider Ballistarii, it definitely looks like it's more of a vanguard riding it than anything else. So I like that little touch there. Now, when we go to the Ironstrider Ballistarii, we can see that it looks like, as advertised by GW, that a ranger is piloting it, which is very fitting. So the Ironstrider Ballistarii, let's look at it. The weapon skill is that of a standard Skitarii weapon skill. It has the same ballistic skill, strength, and armor value and initiative of the Sydonian Dragoon, and it has one less attack than the Sydonian Dragoon and the same hull points as the Sydonian Dragoon. So the reason why there's differences in terms of number of attacks and weapon skill is because this guy is not trained or enhanced with programming for assaulting. It's a vehicle, it's a walker, it's open topped, of course, and you get one Ironstrider Ballistarius, or Ballistarius, however you want to pronounce it, to start off with. War gear wise, you get a twin link Cognis autocannon, a broad spectrum data tether again, and a searchlight. Options, you can again include up to 5 additional Ironstrider Ballistarii here. Ballistarii. Anyways, Ballistarius is, I guess, the singular for Ballistarii. So yeah, you can have up to 6 max in one unit, just like you could with the Sydonian Dragoons. And any model may replace this twin-link Cognis autocannon with a twin-link Cognis lascannon. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's just an autocannon and just a lascannon, but it has that Cognis special rule, which can help if things get too close and get, all up in your grill, so to speak. Special rules is Crusader, Doctrina Imperatives, Untitled, and Precision Shots. So where the Dragoons were kind of stalking the wastelands and bringing their cover with them and then charging violently into the enemy, these things keep their distance. They're at the very fringes of the Skitarii battle maniples, but they're there, they keep their distance. They're really good at taking down enemy commanders, enemy spiritual leaders, enemy heavy armor, if they have the last cannon, of course. And what's cool about them, much like with the Sydonian Dragoons, the monotask servitor that basically pilots the Ironstrider takes care of all the fine minutia work of the Ironstrider moving, so the rider can really concentrate on their task at hand. Now, the cool thing about the Ironstrider Ballistarii is that the Mechanicum inloads them with all of the flaws of the species that they're encountering and war constructs the species create that they've ever encountered. So if you're up against orcs, they're going to load you with all of the orc information you need to know the weak points of absolutely everything, and so on and so forth for all the species they've encountered. So they have a vast library of weaknesses that they inload into the Ironstrider Ballistarii, which makes them very accurate and able to pick out the enemy weaknesses and therefore have those precise shots. So I like that part of their fluff. That's pretty cool. And you know, they're not afraid to trample down light infantry who block their passage if they have to. So basically, if you're moving around and you get into a good position where you unloaded, let's say, some Cognos autocannon fire into an infantry squad and it's still kicking, but it's a light infantry squad or it lost a lot of itself and it can't really hurt you, you could charge into it to try and finish them off that way. Still with the Ironstrider Ballistarii. And like I said, it definitely looks like it's piloted by a ranger as opposed to a vanguard. So that's also pretty cool. These guys really speak to me in terms of my play style. Would I consider a Sydonian Dragoon if I were to collect a Mechanicum? I would, but I would definitely give it the Radium Giselle. And the Ironstrider Ballistarii, it would just be so tempting to include a squad of these guys, all with las cannons, just so you have the final word when it comes to dealing with tanks. Because upwards of 6 las cannons, that's going to be a very points heavy walker squad, I'll admit it, because of the upgrade for the las cannons. But that's 6 twin linked las cannons. Basically, unless you're me, whatever you shoot at that's a vehicle is probably going to be damaged or destroyed pretty badly. So that's really cool for me. I just like that concept, the hilarity of investing all that points into 6 Ironstrider Ballistarii in one unit, all with las cannons, and basically just whatever you shoot at dies. Is, you know, in theory. I like that. But anyways, they're a cool walker. The model has grown on me. Initially, I thought it looked kind of a little bit silly, but it has grown on me a little bit more. The fluff is cool. The idea of this Ironstrider engine, while silly in certain aspects, is also pretty cool overall. I do like it. I like that the Sydonian Dragoons have a bit of a heritage fluff to them, and the Ironstrider Ballistarii have a pure war feel to them. You know, they're very much walking weapon platforms, where the Sydonian Dragoons are like kind of knights of legend, or snipers on iron engines of legend, which, you know, isn't really a thing, but it's cool nonetheless. I like it. I like that. I also like the fact that you have this dichotomy. You have the Sydonian Dragoon, which is very much Vanguard-esque, you know, Radium Giselle and all that, and you have the Ironstrider Ballistarii, very Ranger-esque. I don't know, I like that feel to me. Anyway, that's it for this part. So in part 10, I'm going to go over the last unit left to go over, and that is the Onager Doomcrawlers. So stay tuned for that one. We're getting towards the end here, so thanks for following me along in this in-depth Looksie series, and until next time, take it easy.